Hello to all viewers of this webinar series called Edukampyon. Maraming salamat po sa Rex Education sa imbitasyong makilahok sa programang ito. My name is Dina Ocampo from the UP College of Education, and I'm going to share with you on the importance of student agency. As teachers, we always want the best for our students, and we ask the question, how do we envision our students' futures? We always answer this question by bringing up our aspirations and wishes for them, such as happiness, kindness, and very Filipino values, such as respect for elders, honesty, kindness, and of course, nationalism. Sometimes, however, we notice that our commitment to these aspirations are different from the commitment of the children themselves. And today, we will discuss a possible explanation why there are differences in those commitments. Student agency is an educational construct that is derived from the social cognitive theory proposed by Dr. Albert Bandura. He expounded on agency in his theory, and he said that our actions are propelled by three things: personal factors, environmental factors, and behavior. He also said that our actions are driven by goals, which are richly contextualized and socially situated and orchestrated within an environment. We need to understand agency in the context of schools and classrooms. Agency enables people to play a part in self-development, adaptation, self-renewal with the changing times. The word cloud on our screen shows the terms that are usually associated with agency. Among these are intention, planning, goals, actions, reflectiveness, motivation, and cognitions. Student agency, on the other hand, is thus defined as the capacity to set a goal, reflect, and act responsibly to effect change in one's own learning and development. Sometimes it's also called learner agency. In Filipino, I think the most appropriate term is kusa. Kusa sa pag-aaral, sa pagkatuto, at sa pagpapalago ng sarili. These are some prevailing definitions of agency. These are drawn from research by various organizations across the world. In summary, agency is about acting rather than being acted upon, shaping rather than being shaped, and making responsible decisions and choices rather than accepting those that were determined by others. So the question that arises is, what can students apply their agency on? Here are some examples. I've identified 5 areas for us today. The first is on what they learn, such as the curriculum. They can identify together with their teachers goals for learning, curriculum content, what books or texts they want to read. Second would be how they will learn and how they will know if they are learning. Modalities of learning, for example, platforms to use, online, hybrid, books, and instructional materials to use. These are all important for this second area. Third, on when and where they want to learn. This is very important because, especially after the pandemic, our world has opened up to options that weren't available to us before because of policy. But now, we can adjust schedules, we can time assessments, and there is flexibility in assignments. Fourth area is with whom they want to learn. For example, students can have interest groups, clubs, and organizations to join, school and community activities to participate in. Number 4, I think we have been doing very well for many years. Number 5, on classroom and school policy. Students can apply student agency when they elect their student government, but usually it stops there. with student activities. We can pull that or push that a bit further by talking about how does the school manage its resources? Is it following green architecture, or is it following environmentally friendly waste management? These are things that students can weigh on. So here are examples of 10 ways to give students more control over their learning. One is to vary assessment. My favorite is to be able to personalize content and set goals. This means that one child may be learning more about classical texts such as Shakespeare, Wuthering Heights, while another student would be more interested in more recent literature or 20th century literature, 21st century literature, such as Harry Potter or other books such as Hunger Games. So these things are personalized content. Children can weigh in on those decisions as long as they fall within the scope of the curriculum. Developing agency is also both a goal and a process. We must ensure that we empower all learners, especially those who experience disadvantage in life. Studies have shown that the development of student agency is compromised or affected by socio-economic context of children. Children who come from poor backgrounds do not develop or have a harder time developing agency because they cannot see a future for themselves because they are poor. And so they just accept whatever education dishes out to them. And I think that is really the antithesis of student agency. Children should be able to imagine a future for themselves, and schools should allow them to do that. The other key indicator, or a key context of developing student agency is the concept of co-agency between the student, his or her peers, parents, teachers, and community. These relationships are important. On this slide, we show the degrees of co-agency that were developed by learners themselves in preparation for the Future of Education 2030 document of the OECD. The range starts from silence. Can you imagine that? Silence. Children do not have a say in any of the decisions made for them in school. Then it can move forward or a little bit better to tokenism. It means that students have some representation. For example, there is a student council or there is a class president. But these are representations that have very limited engagement with the classroom processes and the school. And then there is the more heightened level of co-agency where students are actually sharing in the decision-making processes with the teacher. And so this co-agency is very important to nurture because what we would like to see is not just engaged students, we also want to see students who are making decisions or directing themselves so that they can attain their personal goals. So, these are agents in training. So, to be able to push children to the level of student agency, they need to have fundamental skills first and foremost. Fundamental skills include literacy, numeracy, comprehension, content knowledge, among others. So the stronger their thinking or higher order thinking skills are, the more powerful they are and more likely to participate in agency. Second, another prerequisite is engagement. Students who are already applying themselves in schoolwork show motivation, interest, and abilities to work with others. So these two must combine so that a child can cross over to the level of student agency. In student agency, a student is not hindered. The student can use his or her voice to comment on whether learning topics are relevant or can be made more interesting. This is when students speak their minds and teachers listen. Choice is another aspect of agency, where students are helped by teachers to make good decisions. And finally, the third aspect of agency is when students participate in assessments of their progress, they take responsibility for the results and outcomes, and then they set new goals for themselves. These are not hierarchical. However, we have to stress that fundamental skills really help those children to push forward towards agency. In the beginning of this lecture, we started with the original formulation of Bandura, who cited personal, behavioral, and environmental factors. In 2021, Anderson adapted this by identifying 3 ingredients of learner agency that can be applied in schools. The first is the power to act, which is driven by personal and fundamental skills. The second is the will to act, which is underpinned by engagement, motivation, and of course, attitudes. And finally, is the provision of the environment in which to act, such as classrooms, where the student, together with teachers, school administrators, and peers, can exercise their learning agency. These are children who leave our schools at the end of elementary or high school. We asked the question in the beginning, how do we envision our students' future? Perhaps the true essential question should be, what should we be doing now so that our students can imagine and shape their futures?